The two sons of Soren 6 cast long, broken shadows on the jagged walls of the canyon, painting them in fiery amber and muted violet. The settlement's filtration towers hummed their evening lullaby, and the air, which was full of metallic dust, sparkled. In the strange beauty, a person stumbled forward through the fog, her body weak and her movements shaky. Cyrillith, a Draconian from the Serpentis system, walked slowly over the rough ground. Her scales, which used to shine like polished bronze, had lost their shine and turned black at the edges. The torn membranes on her wings flapped weakly against her back. Two little bundles were squirming in her arms. They were wrapped in old thermal blankets that she had found at an abandoned outpost. Her amber eyes, which were getting duller because of the poison in her blood, looked out over the empty horizon. 3 days ago, her clan had punished her for a crime that was not acceptable in their strict traditions. Having twin daughters instead of the male heir they wanted, their punishment was the poison. She softly told the babies, STARFIRE ... Survive, my little stars. The wind took her words, which were as fragile as glass, into the vast emptiness. Headlights cut through the dust ahead. Garrett Hullbrook had been driving this route for 7 years, bringing ore from the mines to the spaceport. His rough face showed the effects of suns from other worlds, and his shoulders remembered years of changing gravity. Ever since the disaster at Europa Station that cost him everything: his job, his friends, and his faith in himself, he had been alone. But when he saw her fall with the babies in her arms, something deep inside him moved. He brought his rig to a halt, boots kicking up red dust as he approached cautiously. Draconians didn't often go this far from their homes. By yourself, no way. But the baby's sad cries made it impossible to believe. There was a crackling sound from the translator behind his ear. She whispered, "Human, it's my last day. Dragon's Bane poison has no cure, so you have to take it." Garrett stopped moving. Every logical thought screamed against taking care of alien children, especially hybrids. Yet one tiny hand gripped his finger, claws pricking softly. And something inside him broke. He said in a rough voice, "We're going to my place. You need to rest." Garrett fed the twins diluted nutrient paste, warmed the blankets, and listened to Cyrillith murmur apologies, blessings, and thanks all night. As the sun rose, he realized how big his responsibility was. The Sectari clan would not forgive him. The twins, who were stuck between the human and Draconian worlds, were in danger in every way. A ritual of chosen blood followed, guided by Cyrillith's fading strength. A drop of her blood marked him and made him her guardian. "Tell them their mother loved them and that their father will keep them safe," she said softly, closing her eyes for the last time. The morning light showed off the twins' delicate hybrid features, soft human skin with a hint of scales, and tiny claws curled around the warmth of their father's hands. Garrett stood in the middle of the destruction, realizing that life had given him a chance to do more than just survive. The people of Korthnine, who lived in the jagged canyons of the mining world, were used to being alone and quiet. Humans and a few alien colonists lived in the metallic dust and jagged rock. But that morning, Garrett Hullbrook's shipping container, which was his home and safe place, was about to become the center of a storm he had only just begun to understand. He carefully put the twins, Kastara and Velith, on the makeshift cots. Their small bodies moved up and down in a gentle rhythm. The heat regulators he had set up for their mixed bodies hummed softly, keeping the temperature just right. Every little thing was important. Draconian babies could get hypothermia quickly, and their human traits needed food and warmth at the same time. He looked at the blood-stained rituals that Cyrillith had carved into his forehead as a promise that would last forever. He felt the weight of it settle into his bones. Garrett followed a careful routine for hours, feeding, warming, and watching. He was on edge every time he heard something in the canyon. He had been alone for years, living off of routine and being alone. But these twins had already taken over his body and mind. Their cries brought back instincts he thought were long gone, and their tiny claws left marks on his hands that showed both weakness and strength. A whisper on the wind was the first sign of danger. Draconians, with their unmistakable predatory grace, were getting closer to the settlement. Garrett's scanner picked up 3 hoverbikes weaving down the canyon, their engines whispering threats across the metal cliffs. The Sectari clan could smell the bodies of their dead relatives. He held on to the mining laser, a piece of equipment from the frontier that had been repurposed for defense. It was against the law, but here, the law was more of a suggestion than a rule. The three people got off their horses outside. The leader, whose scales sparkled green in the two suns, spread his wings to show that he was in charge. "You own property of the Sectari clan," the leader hissed, and his translator made his words sound stiff and formal. "Give us back what is ours, and we will leave in peace." Garrett's jaw got tight. "I came across a woman who was dying, and her kids. That is the law for people on this planet. You don't have a claim here." The Draconian's tail whipped around, sending up red dust. "The woman is dirty. Her kids are worthless. They have to be sent back or destroyed." Garrett felt a heat rise inside him that he hadn't felt in years. Not just anger, but a strong, instinctive need to protect. "I am protecting them. If you touch them, you'll have to answer to me." A flash of movement, the ceremonial blade of the Sectari leader, but before blood could spill, a voice rang out through the canyon. "That would not be a good idea, Sectari Martha Kowalski." The settlement's doctor and unofficial mayor got out of her medical transport. Age had not made her less powerful. Decades of working as a doctor on the frontier and fighting in border wars had made her a figure of authority that no one dared question. The Sectari leader growled. "This is a clan matter," Martha said. "Not anymore," and she moved with surprising speed for her age of 73. "Someone called in a medical emergency. I am the authority that is responding." The twins moved around in Garrett's arms because they were sensitive to stress. He could feel the little bodies reacting, their mixed senses warning them of danger. The Sectari looked at each other, and their scales showed that they were unsure. Martha went on. "I call on Section 12 of the Colonial Accord. Any baby born on a human colony world, no matter what species they are or who their parents are, is automatically given protective status until they are 1 year old. These kids are now wards of the settlement." The leader's wings spread out more. "This can't happen," Martha said. "It can, and it does. Unless you want me to call in orbital marines, they would love to hear about how Draconians threaten human settlers and try to kill babies." The twins' small bodies relaxed a little in Garrett's arms. But he knew the Sectari would keep going. Their weapon was patience, and their creed was persistence. The first few weeks were a hard balance between being careful and being alert. Garrett made up feeding schedules and formulas on the fly, mixing human protein pastes with draconian nutrients that Martha helped him make. He set up musical instruments to play 2 harmonies at once. Kastara played classical earth songs, and Velith sang along with draconian scale arrangements. Days and nights blurred together, filled with the soft rhythm of feeding, cleaning, and the quiet hum of life. But the Sectari's shadow was still there. Shipments of supplies went missing, and the water recycler started to show signs of damage. One morning, Garrett woke up to find strange symbols carved into the outside wall of his container. It was a silent warning. Martha said, "They are patient. They look, they wait." By the second month, things got worse. The settlement market, which is usually a place for small fights and laughter, became a place for big fights. Garrett had brought the twins in a double harness. He heard Velith's sharp, scared scream. A cloaked Draconian moved toward Kastara with an unnatural grace. Garrett jumped into action right away and grabbed the intruder's wrist. The hood fell off. Scales that are pale blue. Woman Sectari let go. "Human," she said in a low voice. "These are the clan's things." Garrett stood tall, every muscle tense and ready. "Like hell they are," he growled. The settlement stopped. "You can't watch them forever," she said angrily. Garrett said, "Try me," in a calm but deadly voice. "There's no part of this galaxy where I won't find you if you take them. And when I do, ... The Draconian stopped, surprised by the way he said he owned something. "They're not yours," she said. "I choose them. That makes them more mine than blood ever could." Settlement security ended the standoff. The Draconian was led away, but her glare as she left promised that she would keep going. Garrett's heart raced, but he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. He wasn't just living anymore. He was fighting for life itself. At night, Garrett walked around with the twins, singing old Earth songs out of tune and making up lyrics about faraway stars and brave little dragons. Kastara reached up and patted his chest. Velith yawned, and the soft light made her tiny fangs shine. Martha came in with a pot of hot stew. "Thought you could use some real food." They sat together and ate in the small space. Bureaucracy became a weapon. People filed complaints and counterclaims. The colonial accord kept the twins safe from Garrett's legal threats. But the knowledge stayed. The Sectari would not give up. That night, Garrett held the twins and felt the warmth of their mixed bodies against his chest. He said in a low voice, "We'll get through this, me and you, everyone." The twins slept soundly, not knowing anything about the politics of the galaxy. For the first time in 7 years, Garrett knew he wasn't just alive. He was living. Garrett Hullbrook felt a slight tremor outside his container home, just as the twin suns of Korath 9 were rising. The wind in the canyon carried whispers of dust that were sharp and metallic. But he could also hear the careful steps of people watching. The Sectari were always patient, and they had a lot of power. He held Kastara and Velith tighter, feeling their little bodies move against his chest and sensing that they were awake even though they were sleeping. The days had settled into a routine of feeding, watching, and practicing defense. Martha's arrival was a blessing, not only because she was a doctor, but also because she knew how the colonial government worked. She gave the twins a special food that met both human and draconian needs, and Garrett set up complicated heating and humidity controls to make their hybrid bodies feel like they were in 2 different climates at the same time. He often marveled at how strong they were, with tiny claws curling around his fingers and scales glinting in the dim light of the morning. But the peace was weak. The Sectari pushed the limits in small ways every day. Missing shipments, broken equipment, and strange symbols carved into walls were all signs that the clan was watching and waiting for one mistake. Garrett had learned to be wary of every shadow and every person who passed by. That morning, Martha sent a message through the settlement's secure communicator. "You have to move them," she said. "The Sectari are watching us here. It's not safe anymore. A freighter will leave the outer rim tomorrow night. Off the beaten path, discreet, and the captain owes me favors. We might be able to get official custody if you can get to Centauri Station. It's dangerous, but it's better than staying here." Garrett looked at the twins, who were asleep and weak in his arms. He muttered, 3 weeks in hyperspace. "They're going to hate it. They will live," Martha said with confidence. "You have to live, and so do they." Right away, they started getting ready. Garrett packed food, clothes that protected him from the twins' scales, and custom harnesses that let him carry both twins safely. He got rid of extra tools and equipment, keeping only the most important ones. The settlement, even though it was small, came to say goodbye. Miners, mechanics, and a few colonists from other planets helped out, gave advice, and sometimes cried. The freighter, which had a funny name, Rusty Bucket, waited at the edge of the canyon at night. Captain Morrison, a thin man known for being discreet, nodded to Garrett. He looked at the twins in their harness and said, 3 weeks through the outer routes. Hope your kids like turbulence. There was a lot of chaos when we first jumped to hyperspace. Kastara screamed, Velith cried, and Garrett wandered through narrow hallways, bouncing and rocking, making up songs and lullabies. He made up songs about faraway stars, brave little dragons, and human heroes, mixing the 2 worlds together. The crew of the freighter, which included Morrison, a quiet engineer named Sarah, and Bull, a former pirate who is now a security officer, took turns helping. Everyone quickly learned that Garrett was completely devoted, and that the twins, even though they were small, had a strong will that could get people's attention. A pattern started to form by the 3rd day. Kastara's tiny fingers tapped along to classical earth music, and Velith reacted to the soft harmonies of draconian-scale pieces that Garrett played on improvised instruments. It was a delicate balance between caring for people and following their instincts. And Garrett started to notice small signs of growth and change. The twins' bodies, which were still weak, started to react in predictable ways to food, temperature, and stimulation. But danger was always close by. Garrett saw 3 sleek scout ships on long-range sensors while taking a short detour through an uncharted system. Drones from the clan could follow them even through hyperspace, and Garrett knew they would have to fight. He got ready. He whispered to the twins, "Are you 2 ready for some fun?" They gurgled back, their tiny claws brushing his skin. He let out a grim smile. The freighter had to rely on stealth and improvisation, even though it was fragile. Garrett kept an eye on the sensors all the time and spoke to Captain Morrison in low tones. Garrett said in a low voice, "They're following us. Probably drones. Could be staffed." "I don't like it." Morrison grunted. "We'll shake them." Jumping over outer roots is hard. They can't follow blind jumps without putting themselves in danger of, well, total destruction. Just keep the kids calm. For the next few hours, Garrett was on edge and alert. The twins stayed calm for the most part, even though they could feel the ship's small vibrations. Garrett sang softly, a song about stars and bravery that brought their two cultures together. His voice was a soft lullaby, and the steady hum of the freighter became their anchor. On the 7th day, everything went wrong. The Rusty Bucket had to slow down because it was in an asteroid field that wasn't on any maps. Sectari drones sent a small strike team to take advantage of the weakness. Garrett saw them too late. A volley of lasers broke the freighter's front sensors, sending sparks flying down the hallway. The twins woke up screaming. It was instinct that took over. Garrett turned on the emergency protocols. Magnetic harnesses held the babies in place. Reinforced panels protected the cabin, and he loaded his mining laser. Sarah was in charge of the engine moves, and Bull was in charge of the countermeasures. Garrett, his heart racing, moved to protect the babies directly, covering their small bodies as best he could. The fight was crazy. Drones flew through the shadows of the asteroids, shooting with deadly accuracy. Garrett disabled 2 with well-aimed laser bursts, while his body moved with practiced speed. One hit the hull of the freighter, making it shake. He instinctively protected the twins, feeling every vibration as if it were his own pain. The drones were gone, or at least out of sight, hours later. Garrett sat on the cabin floor, with the twins still clinging to his chest, their bodies shaking against his warmth. He was covered in sweat and dust. He looked down at them and was amazed at how strong they were. He whispered, "You made it. You made it through. And so did we." Captain Morrison came up, and his face showed how tired he was. "You've got guts, Hullbrook. I've never seen anything like it. Those twins." His voice faded away. Garrett said simply, "They're my responsibility. Nobody touches them, always." The days went on, mixing stress and care. The twins started to show small signs that they were aware of their survival. Kastara's eyes followed Garrett's hands as he worked, and Velith cooed at the low hum of the engines. Garrett saw patterns in how they acted, little things that showed both human curiosity and draconian instinct. The twins could respond to simple cues by the 15th day. A hand gesture could calm Velith, and a soft hum could put Kastara to sleep. Garrett was tired and hurt, and he started to see himself as a father in every way, not just as a protector. The trauma and loneliness of Europa Station, as well as the guilt and loneliness of the past few years, all seemed to come together in these moments of care and watchfulness. But the threat of the Sectari never really went away. Long-range scans sometimes picked up distant signatures, and Garrett stayed alert, thinking of every possible outcome. Every meal, every lullaby, and every little bedtime ritual became part of a bigger plan to stay alive. But even in the stress, there was love. Little fingers holding on to his soft gurgles when he rocked them gently, and the warmth of their little bodies against his chest. For the first time in years, Garrett let himself feel alive. These twins had completely changed him. On the 21st day, the lights of Centauri Station could be seen in the distance. The twins slept in their harnesses, not realizing how long and hard the trip had been for them. Garrett, who was standing at the freighter's viewport, felt a wave of relief and excitement about the challenges that were still to come. The Sectari wouldn't give up easily, and the next battle would be over colonial law. But Garrett Hullbrook, tired, hurt, but still strong, knew one thing for sure: nothing would come between him and his daughters. Nothing. The docking bay of Centauri Station sparkled with the cold light of faraway stars. It was a maze of steel and glass floating in space. As the Rusty Bucket pulled into its berth, Garrett Hullbrook felt a strange tension in his body. The twins were asleep in their modified harness. Their little bodies were warm and calm, even though things had been rough for the past 3 weeks. But Garrett knew that landing didn't mean safety. The Sectari were smart, patient, and never gave up. Captain Morrison steered the freighter with steady hands. "Hullbrook, we're ready to dock. But keep in mind that Centauri Station is busy, and anyone could be watching you as soon as you get off. Even a small mistake could get people to notice." Garrett nodded, his jaw tight. "I understand. But the twins need to be taken care of right now. Stop hiding. Stop being in the dark." The docking clamps made a loud noise when they locked into place. Garrett picked up Kastara and Velith and felt their small weight on his chest. Every step down the gangway and every hum of the station's machinery reminded him that they were far from the dusty isolation of Korath 9. But danger always seemed to follow those who had what others wanted. He remembered what Martha had said. The Colonial Council may give you custody if you make a good case, but the Sectari will do everything they can to stop it. The Hullbrooks' first stop was the medical wing. Garrett led the twins through halls of bright white and chrome, past humans, aliens, and hybrids, all of whom were busy with work and survival. Dr. Kowalski's contacts had set up a temporary caretaker named Alira, who was a trained pediatric specialist who knew a lot about hybrid physiology. She met Garrett at the clinic doors. Her face showed a mix of professionalism and awe as she looked at the twins. "Are these the ones?" she asked in a soft voice. Garrett said simply, "They are. Healthy, but fragile. They need constant care, a special formula, and temperature control, among other things." Alira wrote down everything carefully, looking at the twins with care. "I've worked with hybrids before, but this mix is very rare. It will be necessary to take extra care." Garrett let out a small sigh of relief. He felt like someone who was capable and trustworthy would help keep the girls safe for the first time since Cyrillith died. But he knew this was only the beginning. Garrett got medical help and then made his way through the bureaucratic maze of Centauri Station. He met officials who were skeptical, people who were curious, and even a few xenophobes who were all talking about human foolishness and alien monstrosities. Garrett didn't pay attention to them. Instead, he focused on the twins, feeling their small fingers wrap around his own, as if to remind him why he was going through these problems. 3 days after they got there, Martha sent Garrett a secret message. "Hullbrook," her voice crackled over the secure line. "Agents from the sect are already at the station. Not obvious. Look at every shadow. You can't trust anyone until we make our case." Garrett's stomach hurt. He knew that the clan had more resources than he could imagine, because they could get to the underbelly of Centauri Station. Every transporter, market, and hallway could be dangerous. But he also knew he wouldn't leave the girls behind. Not now, not ever. Garrett took the twins back to their temporary home when night fell over the station. He had set up a small room with climate controls, crib improvements, and low-key security features. The soft light made Velith's tiny wings twitch, and Kastara's scaled hands felt the warmth of his chest. Garrett felt a rush of pride for how protective he was. A loud knock on the reinforced door suddenly echoed through the room. Garrett stopped moving, his instincts screaming. He slowly opened the door with a mining laser in his hand. There was a figure there, hooded, like a shadow among shadows. Garrett's voice was steady. "Say what you want." The figure pulled down the hood, showing a young Draconian woman with pale blue scales and sharp eyes. "I'm Laia," she said, her voice careful. "I'm not Sectari. I have come to help." Garrett didn't let go of the weapon. "Why should I believe you? My family didn't agree with what Sectari did." Laia said, "I know people who can help me get around their network. I've been watching the twins from a distance. I swear on my honor that I don't work for them." Garrett nodded after a long time of thinking. "Okay. But if you lie or make a mistake, you're out or worse. You get it?" "Okay," she said simply. Leah's knowledge was very helpful. She led Garrett through secret passages, hard-to-reach communication lines, and safe areas of Centauri Station where Sectari power was less strong. They worked together to come up with a plan for the upcoming council presentation. Proof, paperwork, and witnesses that could change people's minds about giving the twins custody. Garrett, on the other hand, kept working on the difficult job of being a parent. He noticed small differences in the hybrid development of Kastara and Velith. For example, Velith's claws were sharper and more flexible than he thought they would be, which let her move things with great accuracy. Kastara also had a better sense of smell and hearing than most human infants. Their mixed heritage was hard, but it was also amazing. Every day brought new skills and small victories. Garrett felt a vibration through the floor one night while he was rocking Velith to sleep. Not very clear, but definitely there. Sectari agents, probably checking their borders. He looked over at Kastara, who had fallen asleep and was fluttering her tiny wings. He muttered, "Not tonight," as he looked for ways to get in. He and Leah spent hours making their temporary home safer, coming up with security measures on the fly, and making plans for what to do if they had to fight. Garrett thought about every possible outcome, with the twins at the center of them all. He wouldn't let fear make him give up. The day of the Colonial Council presentation had come. Garrett, Leia, and the twins went through the station in heavy disguise to avoid known Sectari patrols. In the Grand Chamber, representatives from many species gathered, their faces neutral but focused. Garrett stood in front of the panel, holding the twins carefully. Everyone in the room was quiet, and all eyes were on the fragile hybrids being held by people. He started his testimony with a steady voice that was full of conviction. He talked about Cyrilith's death, how the twins were born, and how the Sectari never stopped looking for them. He showed medical reports, proof that the twins were healthy and able to adapt, and proof that hybrids were weak. Every word was thought out, and every pause was planned. Leia gave technical information about how Sectari worked, which helped explain the clan's strategies. Martha's previous paperwork made sure that the procedures were legal. They put together a story that couldn't be refuted. The twins were in immediate danger. Their mixed race made them need special protection, and Garrett Hullbrook had already shown that he was dedicated and capable. The council talked about it for hours. Garrett walked around the room, glancing at Kastara and Velith, who were holding onto his chest and arms. He told them stories about faraway planets, bravery, and how hard their mother worked to make sure they were safe. The twins listened with big, confused eyes, but there was a calmness in the air, a sense that he was their protector. The council finally made their choice. Garrett Hullbrook would get custody, which would make him the official guardian with permanent power. To keep Sectari from interfering on Centauri Station, protective measures were put in place. Garrett felt lighter, but then the weight of responsibility came back. Garrett let himself feel a rare sense of relief as he went back to his temporary home. The twins slept soundly, not knowing that people were fighting for them in both politics and their personal lives. He gently touched their small heads and felt the warmth of their mixed bodies. He said softly, "You are safe. Nobody can touch you now. Not here, not ever, and I will always keep you safe." Leia, who's now a trusted friend, helped set up a long-term care plan that made sure the twins had stability, safety, and support for their specific needs. Garrett realized that their journey had not only given them custody, but also made unexpected friends. To survive in a galaxy full of shadows, they would need bravery, creativity, and the heart of a protector. Garrett knew that even if he won, the Sectari would not go away completely, because they were always on guard, patient, and persistent. Future fights were sure to happen. But for the first time since Cyrilith died, Garrett felt a little hopeful. The twins were alive, doing well, and he was keeping them safe. And he was finally ready to fully, and without hesitation, accept the role he had been given. Garrett held the twins close as night fell over Centauri Station. Their small breaths rose and fell in time with his own. He sang softly, a song that mixed Earth melodies with Draconian harmonics, which connected the two worlds. He felt their mother's spirit watching and approving at that moment, and he whispered a promise. "No matter how far away or how dark it is, I will protect you, always." The first light from Centauri's to suns shone on the station's metal spires, making the hallways look like they were made of soft gold and cold steel. Garrett Hullbrook had long since stopped pretending to be alone. The twins, Kastara and Velith, were now a big part of his life. Their mixed needs shaped every moment. He changed the temperature controls to keep their wings flexible and their bodies warm. And Leia helped him keep an eye on their food intake and immune responses. Leia said, "Kastara is practicing her flight reflexes again." Her pale blue scales shone in the light of the station. She leaned over the crib and gently urged the baby's tiny wings to spread out. Velith, always the observant sibling, copied her sister and made small flutters that made them bounce lightly on their bedding. Garrett watched with a mix of pride and amazement. He said, "They surprise me every day. I never thought I'd raise kids like this, part human, part draconian. But all theirs, totally amazing." Leia smiled. "You've done more than I could have imagined. Most humans would have panicked months ago, hiding or surrendering. But you fight for them. That means more than anything else." Garrett grunted and wiped the sweat off his forehead with the heat lamps. "I fight because I have to, and because they deserve more than fear." But the peace was weak. People in the outer sectors who didn't like human interference had heard about Garrett's custody win. Sectari agents stayed in the shadows, watching the Hullbrook family from hidden places, studying their daily lives, and making plans for possible kidnappings. Garrett had made their living space safer by adding stronger doors, emergency escape hatches, and a set of early warning sensors that were adapted from mining equipment. The Rusty Bucket's communication channels, which are usually quiet, now buzzed with encrypted updates and surveillance from Martha Kowalski, who was keeping an eye on things from a distance. The twins had started to react to Garrett's voice and presence in very interesting ways. Kastara could copy tonal sequences, which were the melodic harmonics that Garrett had added to their lullabies. Velith had a natural sense of space. Her small claws held onto things with amazing accuracy. They were a mix of brains and instincts, with human curiosity tempered by draconian speed. One night, while Garrett was feeding, the come alarm went off loudly. He stopped moving, holding the twin harness in his arms, and quickly switched the display. An unauthorized freighter in a cloak was getting close to a docking bay that was off-limit Sectari Loya. Garrett hissed. "We have guests, protocols for quick responses." Leah moved quickly, sealing off places where people could get in and turning on automated defenses. The twins moved around a little, but they were safe in Garrett's arms. The shadowy freighter came down through the viewport, and its sensors carefully scanned the station. Garrett tightened his grip on the modified mining laser, and a calm sense of purpose came over him. The docking hatch opened with a hiss, and four Sectari agents stepped out. Their emerald green scales shone in the light of the docking bay. The leader stepped forward, holding a ceremonial sword at his side. "Hullbrook," he said in a voice full of authority. "The children belong to the Sectar. Get out of the way. Or else." Garrett carefully but quickly put the twins down on a reinforced observation platform with emergency barriers on either side. "I am keeping them safe. You won't touch them. Not now, not ever." The leader of the Sectari squinted. "You might have tricked the Colonial Council, human, but we own the bloodline. It will always be." Garrett shook his head. "Not on my watch. They are more than just family ties. They are living things, and I am responsible for their lives." There was a tense standoff, but Laya's voice broke it. "I can get to the station's security. They can't move around freely without letting the police know." The Sectari hissed in anger, and you could feel the tension between the two species. But before things could get out of hand, a loud, deep roar echoed through the docking bay. It felt like the whole station was shaken. From above, the twins' hidden draconian heritage showed itself in a stunning way. A faint glow traced their wings, and without thinking, they launched small, controlled bursts of propulsion that were strong enough to keep them in the air and make a wind tunnel that threw the Sectari off balance. The guards fell, their claws scraping the deck, and the leader's sword hit a blast shield that Garrett had set up, making a lot of noise but not doing anything. Garrett grabbed the twins while they were still in the air and ran behind reinforced walls. He felt his heart race, but a smile came to his face. "I believe they love their human father." Leah led him through emergency channels to the station's main command center. They set up a protective cordon around the Hullbrook quarters using her insider knowledge and power. Automated security drones came, a mix of human technology and modified draconian response units. They stopped the Sectari intrusion without having to fight. Garrett crouched down next to the twins while the intruders were caught and held. Velith, with her eyes wide and glowing faintly, snuggled into his chest. Kastara did the same, her wings shaking with effort and excitement. Garrett spoke softly to them, his voice shaking with pride and relief. "You are safe now while I'm here. No one will hurt you. Do you get it?" In the days that followed, there was a lot of training and adapting. The twins were more than just babies. They were living beings with their own special skills. This meant that Garrett had to find a balance between caring for them and giving them advice. Garrett did small exercises to strengthen wing muscles, improve spatial awareness, and sharpen sensory perception. While Leah watched closely, music was still a big part of their daily lives. Kastara listened to Earth classical music, and Velith listened to Draconian harmonic sequences. The twins did well, and their skills and personalities grew along with them. Still, Garrett stayed alert. Sectari agents were still working in nearby systems, trying to get into communications and supply lines. Every day was a careful balance of normalcy and caution, a test of strength and creativity. Garrett made sure that rules were followed, practiced emergency drills, and changed everyday life to keep the twins safe while still letting them be kids. Months went by. The twins' skills became more obvious. Kostara learned to think and solve problems at an early age. And Velith had amazing flight coordination and reflexes. They were more than kids. They were guardians in training, led by a human father who had found meaning in the weight of love and responsibility. Garrett kept track of every important event and sent Martha and the Colonial Council detailed reports. Their growth, health, and ability to fit in with life on the station were all things that helped his legal and moral case. Leah was a loyal friend who often went into dangerous areas to gather information and predict what the Sectari would do next. They made an unusual but effective defense network together. Garrett watched the twins sleep under the soft light of Centauri Station's artificial sunlight. One quiet evening, Kostara's wings moved, making Velith's gentle flutters look like they were moving. Garrett whispered a promise he had made to himself a long time ago. "You will be safe. You are my responsibility, and I will do anything to keep you safe." The twins suddenly moved, stretching their wings without thinking. Velith made a soft musical sound, and Kostara copied it. Garrett grinned. He understood that they were talking to each other, using a kind of early interaction that was both human and draconian. Their heritage, which had once been a source of worry and doubt, had become a link between worlds. Weeks later, the Colonial Council made it official that Garrett would be in charge of the children for good. The Sectaris appeals were denied because the ritual of chosen blood and Garrett's unwavering leadership made their claims invalid. Centauri Station put in place permanent safety measures to keep the twins safe and let Garrett focus on raising them instead of always being on guard. Garrett stood on the observation deck with the twins in his arms, watching the stars stretch out in front of him. Leah put a comforting hand on his shoulder and joined him. "They're amazing," she said quietly. Garrett agreed, his eyes on the faraway nebulae, and the challenges they face will make them stronger, more powerful than I could have ever thought. The twins squirmed, their little hands reaching for the stars outside the window. Garrett smiled. "One day, those wings will take you farther than I ever could. But until then, I'll be here." At that moment, Garrett understood what being a father really meant. Not just giving life, but also protecting it, caring for it, and teaching it to be brave and strong in the face of problems. The universe was huge, unpredictable, and often cruel. But in the small, safe space of Centauri Station, a human and two hybrid children formed a bond that went beyond species, bloodlines. And the cold vastness of space, Garrett looked at Leah. "Are you ready to teach them how to fly outside the station?" She smiled, and the light shone on her scales. "As long as you're ready to catch them when they fall." He chuckled softly as he raised the twins higher, letting their wings stretch against the fake winds in the observation bay. The first, careful flutters turned into confident beats, and the second followed, unsure but determined. Garrett held them steady, his heart swelling with love, awe, and a sense of duty. Garrett knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, hostile worlds, or the unknowns of hybrid life, the twins would be there with him to face them. He was their guardian and protector, and they taught him what it meant to really live, love, and fight for something bigger than himself. The twin sons of Centauri shone on the wings of the sleeping twins above the station, making patterns that sparkled like a promise. The universe was big, but they had found a place to call home. That was enough for Garrett Hullbrook.